Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today, and I'm very excited for today's virtual field trip to South Africa. We're going to hang out at Sanccob, where they rescue thousands of seabirds each year, particularly the South African penguin, which is an endangered species. We have Alex joining us today. He's going to tell us a little bit about what they do at Sanccob, as well as give us a little tour of the facility. So Alex, it is so great to have you joining us from South Africa today.
It's a pleasure to join you as well. I'm looking forward to actually teaching you quite a bit about what's happening here.
All right,
Okay.
Excellent. Well, as I mentioned, we've got classrooms joining us from the US and classrooms joining us. We've got a classroom joining us from Albania. So we're excited to have everybody today.
Cool. So just introductions. My name is Alex. It's very nice to meet all of you. I am the education assistant here at Sanccob. For those of you that might be wondering, what does Sanccob stand for? It stands for the Southern African Foundation for the Conservation of Coastal Birds. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of history, and then I'm going to take you guys on a tour of our hospital. So we started our work back in 1968. We're now 50 years in existence. We've treated and saved nearly 100,000 marine birds and counting. And this is only thanks to public support in terms of donations and also all our volunteers as well. So we've actually been able to run thanks to public, not just locally, but also internationally. We get a lot of support from America and Europe and UK and all over the world. And we specialize in marine birds. Every single year we get on average about 2,500 patients. Quite a number of them, and a lot of our species, which we get on average about 22 to 24, depending on the year, will either be vulnerable or endangered. And that's basically why we do the work that we do, because these species, there's not a lot of them left out in the wild. So I'm just going to swap over, and I'm going to take you on a bit of a tour. So I'm just leaving my office right now, and I'm going to be walking into our hospital. So this is the inside of our hospital. This very large room over here is called our wash and rinse bay. All the people that you see here are volunteers coming from all over the world. Italy, UK, Europe. And these guys are here actually doing quite a lot of the work. They do all the feeding, so they feed our animals. They do the tubing. They do some of the medication. They do all the cleaning, some of the maintenance of our facility. They do the releases and also the pickups of our injured birds. So very, very important. The main reason for this room is for oil spills. So when there's an oil spill, which is usually when a very big boat or a oil rig hits something or something terrible happens, the oil spills out into the ocean, and we have to save as many animals as possible, which is why we have this hosing over here and this guttering over here. So during an oil spill, we'll move all this other equipment out, and we will actually then take them, wash them, and release them as soon as they're healthy again. So I'm going to walk outside now, but even though I'm outside, I'm still inside the hospital itself. And over here, as you guys can see, we have a number of birds. I'm just going to walk around so you guys can have a closer look. So as you can see, we have quite a number of penguins here. These are all African penguins. We do sometimes also get other species, mainly northern rockhoppers, but this is the only species here that is found indigenously, which means you don't find it anywhere else in the world. And like a lot of the animals, these guys are endangered. So if you guys don't know what endangered means, it means that there's not a lot of them left in the world. There used to be about 2 million of these guys 80 years ago. Now they're down to about 46,000, which means that 98% of them are gone in less than 80 years. So it's actually quite scary. Besides the penguins, we have other birds here as well. Just going to try and get the shadow out over there. So we have some flight birds here. So we get cormorants, and we get pelicans, and we get seagulls, and we get terns and shearwaters and oyster catchers. We get them all. Now, the common factor between all of these species is basically they're all marine birds. So they're all birds that live near the ocean, and they get their food from the ocean as well. And we get our birds all along our coastlines thanks to the support of the public. This is what a normal pen looks like. So a normal pen is basically just the flooring. These are our normal patients. We're taking care of them. It takes about 2 to 3 months for them to get better, and then we will release them. So that is the main difference between us and most zoos and aquariums. Most zoos and aquariums, they'll keep their animals. We want to take them back to the wild so they can have happy lives. Now, you might be wondering, why do these guys only get flooring over here, and these guys get this very fancy pen with the rocks and the pools and the trees? So this pen is very special. It's called home pen, and it's for two types of our birds. It's for our long-term patients, which means it's going to take quite a long time for them to get better. So sometimes over 3 months, sometimes a whole year. It depends. And then most of these guys are permanent, which means that we cannot take them back to the ocean. We cannot take them back to a colony. And that's because most of these guys are hurt in a way. So they're hurt in a way where they could not survive. So to give example, they can't see out of one of their eyes. And for them, their vision is very important. Or their beak is a little bit skew, and that would make it very difficult for them to actually eat their food. So there's injuries like that. And the other reason why they would stay with us permanently is because if they've become too tame. So I'm not sure if you guys all know what tame means, but basically it's when an animal, just very simply, when an animal gets too used to people, is friendly with people, and expects to be taken care of by people as well. So they won't go and hunt for themselves, they won't go and feed themselves. They'll be very, very friendly with people in general. So that's perfectly fine for our cats and dogs at home. But for wild animals, it is not good because they need all of those amazing skills to take care of themselves. And if they don't have those, they can't really survive in the wild. So that's also a very important lesson, boys and girls. When we're out in nature, we should not approach any wild animals, not at all. Firstly, because they could hurt us, because they don't know that you them. But the other reason is, if you don't have training, then you also wouldn't be able, you could hurt them as well. So I have a special show. These guys are babies. These guys are our baby penguins. And they're here because, unfortunately, their parents can't look after them. Now, what happens in the wild is the parents have to go look for food, but sometimes they can't find anything because of something called overfishing. So that means that people are taking out way too much fish and not leaving enough fish for the penguins and other animals that live in the ocean. And another thing that's causing a problem is climate change. So climate change is basically a very fancy word for the changing of the weather, of the whole world's weather. And because of climate change, it's changing the weather in our area so that we have more heat waves happening, and the currents of our water is changing, and the temperature of the water is changing. So there's a lot of things changing, and that's all affecting where they can also find the fish. So very important that we actually monitor these sort of things, because this is all having a very bad effect on their populations, on how many penguins we actually have. just to give you a view in one of our aviaries. So this is where we keep all of our flight birds. These guys over here, because they can fly, we keep them in this enclosed area. They're hurt in some way, so we don't want them to fly and hit into anything and hurt themselves even more. But you can see we have some seagulls in here, two different types. So the very large seagulls are called kelp gulls, and the smaller ones are called heart-lip gulls. But we do have other flight birds as well. So over here, we have quite a number of juvenile Cape cormorants. So these guys over here, they've come specifically because of fledging. So they've left their nest. Their parents are no longer taking care of them, but they still don't have the skills to take care of themselves. So these guys over here, they've come to us because they couldn't find enough fish. They didn't know where to go and fish themselves. So we're just taking care of them until they've reached a little bit older, and then we will release them on one of our islands, which is very important. We do not want to release them near any of our cities, because then it's more than likely we'll get them back again because they hurt. So we want to release them away from people. Very important. So just to show you, another very important part of the hospital are our pools. So if you have a look over here, we just have two penguins busy swimming right now. So it's actually a very small group swimming. Usually we have quite a number of these guys. And the pools are very important because we have to make sure they have strong swimming muscles. So we don't actually train them to swim. They know how to swim from birth, but we have to make sure that they can swim for long periods of time. Another thing we have to test is the waterproofing of their feathers. Now, boys and girls, imagine you were a penguin, and imagine you could only get your fish out of the ocean. So you couldn't go to a fish store or anything like that, which means you have to swim every single day in order to eat. Now, if you didn't have great feathers, that would mean that you would get pretty cold every day and probably sick. So it's very important for penguins to have great waterproofing feathers. So these guys over here have to have 100% waterproof feathers. And if they don't, they will get very, very cold and most likely very sick. It's the reason why we get some of these guys. The other reason why they have to swim in the pools is because they have to make sure to take care of their own feathers. So sometimes when you see a penguin swimming, they'll be nibbling their feathers. So that's basically called preening. They're preening their own feathers, which is they're just taking care of the quality of their feather as well. So yes, this is the outside of our facility, but this is only a very small section. Now, if you'll notice, there's this wooden walling over here. That's actually half of Sanccob gone. We're actually under construction right now. We're building new pools and pens and new aviaries. So it's actually going to be quite amazing, the end result. It's just taking a little bit of time for us to complete it. There's also, I don't know if you guys can see with the sun, but there's this building, this white building on this side. That is our new hospital. So that is basically two new operating theaters, an x-ray room, an admissions room, a food prep room, two ICU areas, a walk-in fridge, a walk-in freezer. It is things like a generator room, a laundromat, wash and rest bay for our oil spill event. So it's a lot. And it's all geared towards saving more animals. Now, I'm sure everybody on that side would love to save more animals. So there's quite a few things that you guys can do. There's things like, I'm sure you guys know the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. All of those things, if you do them, you will be saving lives. Things like using less plastic. You can also, when you go shopping, don't buy plastic bags. Use reusable ones. If you guys want, you can also, when you get a little bit older, join an environmental group or an organization or a conservation group. Uh, Try to fill yourself with knowledge. Try to learn as much as possible, because the world that you're going to go in right now is this world, and we need to protect all of these amazing animals. If you guys would like to actually help us save one of these guys, you can actually adopt a penguin. So when you adopt a penguin, you are adopting one of our rehab patients. Um, we can't put a penguin in a box and send it to you guys. It's not going to make it all the way there. But we can take a picture of the penguin you're adopting. We would then need you guys to give us a name. So whatever name you want. You would also get a certificate from Sanccob saying you've helped save this bird, and also a letter from your penguin thanking you guys in order to save him. So that goes a long way as well. But the things that you can do, they don't have to be big. You don't have to start a whole organization or you donate R1,000,000 or $1,000,000. It's the small things that help us. So stop using straws, recycling, all of those things, even things like saving water, saving electricity, anything that helps nature is helping us, even if you're halfway around the world. So that is very important, boys and girls. Okay. So, I also wanted to show you guys our admissions room, but they're currently in an operation right now, so I wasn't able to do that. Do you guys have any questions? Joe, can you...
All right. Well, Alex, that was great. Thank you for all that great information. And thank you for the tour. It's an incredible facility, and it's great to see all of those birds. And I think I see Rocky there, the rock hopper, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, Rocky is actually on this side. Let me just go in. I will show Rocky off. So, besides our African penguins, on very rare occasions, we will get these rock hoppers over here. So, this is Rocky. She is actually one of my ambassador birds. So, it's a bird that we often Skype with. And she goes out to schools. Very beautiful, as you can see. She often thinks that she's the most beautiful penguin here at Sanccob. She likes to pose for people. So she actually has her own surfboard in our education room, and she jumps on there and she poses for people. So we often like to use her for our arts and craft lessons. So this is Rocky, but she wouldn't be found here. She's found on islands south of us, about halfway to Antarctica. And they usually get here because they get caught in a very big current, which we call the Bagula current. Or sometimes fishermen catch them in their nets, and they keep them on board and they travel around with them, but they don't take them home. So that is Rocky over there.
All right, excellent. Well, let's meet our first classroom. So let's see. Our first group, they're kindergartens, grade 3s, joining us from Whitney, Ontario. Let me turn their microphone on. How's it going, Whitney, Ontario?
Going great, guys. Wave. And we're from Canada.
All right, who's got a question?
We got a question about penguins or about conservation? I have a question, if I could.
Sure.
With the pens being the way they are, with lots of animals, how difficult is it to prevent the spread of disease amongst the animals?
Okay. That's a very good question. So we have quite a number of very strict protocols and procedures in place. When a bird comes through, they go straight to our admissions, so they don't interact with the rest of our birds. We will then do a very quick checkup. We'll do their weight and we'll draw blood work, and then they'll be kept in our inside ICU area. Now, this is a sterile environment. It also acts as an isolation area. So, and each individual bird, no matter if it's a penguin or a cormorant, they'll get their own container. So they will be separate from the rest of them. The moment we get their blood work back and they've cleared, then it also depends on their condition. So the various pens I showed you during the tour, those pens are specifically for health groups. So it's not about whether they like each other or not. It's about how healthy they are. And we have pens for our intermediate birds. We have healthy pens, and we have very sick pens in ICU areas. We are currently going through something called avian influenza. So our country has been hit by that. Has quite a high mortality rate. So we have put in quite a number of biohazard protocols in place. Nowadays, when we get a patient in, our vet or our bird rehabbers have to go outside to check for any symptoms before we even bring the bird in. Also, everybody that walks into the facility has to step in these disinfectant foot baths before they walk in, and also they have to walk in those again when they walk out because they've just come from a bird area. So yeah.
All right, great question. Let's jump to our next classroom. We're going to go to Florida this time, Titusville, Florida, with some grade 2 and 3 students, I believe, joining us. Let me turn their microphone on. How's it going, Florida?
Say hello.
All right, you've got a question.
Yeah, our question is what is the most common reason that birds come into the hospital?
I know.
Okay, so there are quite a number of reasons. Could be things like animal attacks. So penguins have quite a lot of predators, not just the sharks and certain species of whale, but also seals, leopards, caracals, civets, gannets, snakes. Also, certain types of seagulls go for their eggs and their chicks, so they have quite a lot of predators. Other things like blunt force trauma, which they get hit over by boats out in the water, or they get hit over by cars because sometimes they make their nests across the road and they have to cross the road every day to actually get to the ocean. Sorry, Peter is just busy feeding right now, so these are some platters of fish. Okay, hold on. You guys are actually quite fortunate. They're going to be feeding now, so you'll be able to see that. So, blunt force trauma, entanglement, so netting. They sometimes swallow fishing hooks. Other things like oiling happens as well. Ingestion of plastic, not just from them eating plastic, but they eat fish that also eat plastic, and that gets caught in their digestive tract as well. So it's quite a number of things. In percentage-wise at our facility, I think the lowest reason would be diseases, but that's only because most of our patients come from the public. Because we're a non-profit organization, we don't have the resources or the manpower to have active teams searching our entire coastline. So we're actually very fortunate that the public spots these animals. They call us and we send out a volunteer team to go and collect them. But that also means for diseased birds, most of that would be happening in their colonies. And for marine birds, that means that they're on island colonies. So there's obviously no people on the island. So it's only the birds that land up on our coastline that's actually getting caught by the public. So yeah, and we're just busy feeding these guys over here some sardines. Each one of these penguins will have about 6 to 10 fish a day. If they're molting, they could have 10 to 15 fish. And we go through about 20 to 25 boxes of fish every week, which is about 40, 50,000 Rand every week, which is quite a lot. Thank you for your question.
All right, great question and really cool. We get to catch some of the feeding. We're going to go to a classroom who's joining us from a little bit further than North America. we've got a classroom joining us of third graders in Albania, and I'll just need your help. If your teacher can just unmute your microphone. I can't turn it on and off on my end. So if you don't mind unmuting your microphone so we can hear you, and we'll get a question. There we go. We got you. Yep. You guys have a question?
It's open to us.
Yeah. Yep. Here comes someone. Was
Sorry,
that?
I didn't quite hear that. Can somebody just repeat that question?
Was that how do you protect the animals?
Yes.
Okay. So she's wondering how you protect the animals, how you protect the birds.
Okay, so it's not just our organization. A lot of these birds, if not all of these birds, are protected by our government, by legislation. So there are policing forces out in the water and on land that make sure that these guys are okay. But it is obviously a very big coastline, so it is often very difficult as well. With our penguins, we actually transponder them, which means that when they leave here, we inject them with a very small transponder. It's how we actually keep track of what's happening with them out in the wild. But a lot of the reasons why there's so little of them now is things that we actually can't help. The pollution, which we have to change, not just here in South Africa, but all around the world. The climate change. So it's not people individually that are actually hurting these guys. It's everybody. It's myself included, and we actually have to change how we live and the way we think and appreciate what we have, because these guys are so amazing. And once we've done that, we should be able to save them. But it's thanks to our law enforcement patrols, and also when they get here, we'll transponder them, so that helps us a bit as well. Thanks for your question.
All right, and let's join our last group. They're joining us from Sterling, Virginia. They're a grade 2 classroom, and your microphone's on. How's it going?
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Leah, and we are from Sterling, Virginia. How much does it cost to buy a penguin?
Adopt a
Okay, so our adoption, it is a 600 Rand. So I don't know what the equivalency is in America.
I'll do a quick check over here. I'll check the conversion.
So while Joe is checking, yeah.
No, go ahead. If you want to tell them about the adoption, I'll do a quick check over here.
I was just going to tell them about the feeding. So.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sure.
So these guys are being fed because they are permanent birds, because they're staying here forever. We are hand feeding them, which means we're just putting a fish in front of their mouth and they're taking it from our hands. Now, this is perfectly fine because these guys can't go back to the wild. But for the rest of our pens, they get force-fed, which means that we have to physically open their beak and push food down their throat. Now, this is a little bit stressful on the bird, but it prevents them from getting used to being fed by people, because we don't want them to follow people when we release them back into the wild. And also because they are patients, we have to monitor how many fish they get eaten. For these guys, because they're staying here forever, we can just give them all the fish that they want, and we don't really have to monitor how much fish they eat. But every single one of our other patients, all of these guys over here, every single one of them, we have to be like, okay, this guy has 3 fish, This guy had 4 fish, and that all gets put on their medical card. So it's actually quite a lot of information that we have to do. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, Alex, and I did a quick conversion. So 600 Rand converts to $50 American.
$50 American. Okay, great. So yeah, guys, it is $50. Thank you so much for that, Joe. So yeah, if you guys want to adopt, please do. You are actually helping us buy more medication and more fish, so it's actually going to help saving some of their patients. But otherwise, I could only say do more research, read books, go on the internet, learn as much as possible, and I want to say Skype because I'm more used to Skypes, but please join more Hangouts in the future and learn more about our amazing animals.
All right, excellent. So if any classrooms do want more information, I can send you a link to help you out and show you where to go if you do want to adopt a bird. So we have about 3 minutes left. Is there any other classroom that has a question? If you put your hand up, I'll pick your classroom and we'll get one in. So if you just, I can see our classroom in Albania, the grade 3s. Do you mind turning your microphone on again for me? Nice and loud.
I hear how many. I can't pick up the rest of it.
How many what?
How many penguins?
Oh, how many penguins do you have right now at Sanccob?
Okay. So because we get so many patients, our numbers do fluctuate quite a bit. Because we get so many patients, we also do releases every week as well. So the number always changes. I'm just going to go to our front entrance here and have a look at how many patients we actually have. So we have 48 seagulls, 0 pelicans, 63 African penguins. This number is not including the permanent birds because they're staying here forever. And then 29 cormorants. So total about 167 birds here, which is about the average. We have about 150 to 250 birds at any given time. And then I just wanted to show you a little bit of where I live. So if you guys see that mountain in the background, that's actually Table Mountain. It's very, very cool. It's actually a tourist destination. People come from all over the world just to climb that mountain. And the reason why it's called Table Mountain is because it's flat. And when there's clouds, it actually looks like a tablecloth is coming over this mountain. So it's very, very cool. Cool. Any other questions?
All right. Let's see. I'm going to go to, here we go. We'll turn on the microphone in Virginia.
How big can the African penguins get?
Okay, how big can the African penguins get? So it depends. They do have a general size. I would say it's around about 70 to 80 centimeters, so just a little bit above a ruler. They are classified as a small to medium-sized penguin, so you do get quite larger penguins, and you get smaller penguins. So the penguins in Australia, called little blues, they are the smallest. I think they're about 40 centimeters, but don't quote me on that. And then the largest penguins are emperor penguins. They live in Antarctica. I'd say they're about the size that you guys are actually right now. But they need to be that big to keep nice and warm because they live in a very, very cold place. Cool. Thank you.
All right. And let's see, is there any more questions before we sign off for today? Oh, here we go. Back to Whitney, Ontario. You're on.
All right. So, Roman, why don't you stand up there, Roman?
Raise your head.
Back up a bit. Back up a bit. Back up a bit. Okay. Ask your question.
How many eggs?
How many eggs? I'm actually not too certain. I can quickly go. So because of our construction, We usually keep our eggs and our very smallest chicks in our chick rearing unit, but they're currently actually constructing near that side, so the vibration is actually very bad for the development of eggs. So they've moved this egg incubator into our education room. So this is usually where I take my classrooms. And this is an egg incubator over here. We have a couple of others in our chick rearing unit, and I don't know if it's too dark or not. Yeah, it is a little bit too dark.
Yeah.
But there is two eggs in there at the moment. Actually, you can see the top one. There we go. There's one of our eggs. But that is not an African penguin egg. That is a heart-lip gull egg, if I believe. So yes, I can see two eggs on this side, but I'm not sure what numbers of eggs are in our chick rearing unit. But we do get quite a number. We get quite a lot, hundreds and hundreds of abandoned eggs and chicks. 2016, we got 979 abandoned eggs and chicks. So this is all happening because the changing of the weather and because there's not a lot of fish left in our oceans as well. So it's very scary.
All right. Well, Alex, thank you so much for that awesome hangout today. I know the classrooms definitely enjoyed getting a chance to see some of the penguins and other birds, seabirds that you protect. And yeah, it was some great information. I think they definitely learned a lot.
Cool. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Well, what I'm going to do now is turn the microphones on and give you guys a chance to say goodbye and thank you. I know you guys like to get nice and loud. And then we will sign off for today. And Alex, if you just stick around for a moment, I'll just give you a few details for the next call. Okay. Well, boys and girls, thanks so much. Here come the microphones, nice and loud. Thanks for hanging out today.